The stagecoach robbery left Zara Martinez stranded on a dusty road 30 miles outside Cheyenne, Wyoming, with nothing but the torn dress on her back and the memory of gunshots still ringing in her ears. She had been traveling from Denver to meet her aunt in Cheyenne, carrying what little money she had saved from working at the dress shop for 2 years. Now even that was gone, taken by masked men who had disappeared into the hills like ghosts. The driver had been shot in the arm but managed to get the coach moving again, leaving her behind in his panic. She had stumbled out to check on what she thought was an injured passenger and found herself eating dust as the coach rattled away. The November wind cut through her thin traveling dress like knives. She had lost her coat during the robbery, torn from her shoulders by one of the bandits who thought she might have hidden valuables in the pockets. The sun was setting fast, painting the Wyoming sky in shades of orange and purple that would have been beautiful if she was not so terrified and cold. Zara wrapped her arms around herself and started walking. She knew Cheyenne lay to the north, but the road stretched endlessly before her, and the temperature was dropping with each passing minute. Her teeth chattered as she trudged forward, her fine leather boots already rubbing blisters on her heels. These were city boots, meant for wooden sidewalks and parlor floors, not the rough terrain of the Wyoming frontier. She had walked for what felt like hours, but was probably only 30 minutes when she heard hoofbeats behind her. Fear shot through her spine. Were the robbers coming back? She turned, ready to run into the scrubland despite knowing she would not get far. Instead, she saw a single rider approaching on a paint horse, moving at an easy pace. As he drew closer, she could make out his features in the fading light. He was young, maybe 25 or so, with a weathered face that spoke of long days under the sun. He wore a dusty brown hat, work shirt, and leather chaps over worn denim pants. A bandana hung loosely around his neck, and a well-used revolver sat in a holster at his hip. The cowboy reined his horse to a stop a respectful distance away, clearly seeing her fear. He raised both hands slightly, showing he meant no harm. "Evening, miss," he said, his voice low and calm. "Saw the stagecoach racing through town earlier with a bullet hole in the door. Driver said there had been a robbery. You part of that?" Zara nodded, not trusting her voice. Now that someone was here, someone who might help, she felt dangerously close to tears. The cowboy dismounted and took a step closer, then stopped when she backed up. "Name is Wade Miller. I work at the Double Creek Ranch about 5 miles east of here. Boss sent me out to see if anyone needed help when we heard what happened. They left me," Zara managed to say, her voice shaking from cold and emotion. "The coach just left me here." Wade's jaw tightened, but he kept his voice gentle. "That driver is going to have some explaining to do when I get back to town. Can you ride, Miss Zara Martinez?" she said, giving her name automatically. "And yes, I can ride, but not well." "That will do. We need to get you somewhere warm. Cheyenne is too far to walk, and it will be below freezing soon." He started to untie his heavy canvas coat, the kind drovers wore on the trail. It was lined with wool and looked gloriously warm. As he held it out to her, Zara hesitated. He wore only a cotton work shirt underneath. "Do you not need it?" she asked. Wade shook his head, a slight smile touching his lips. "Not as much as you do, miss. I have been working in this weather all day. You are shaking so hard I can hear your teeth chattering from here." She wanted to argue, but the cold was seeping into her bones. With trembling hands, she took the coat and wrapped it around herself. It was enormous on her small frame and still warm from his body. The relief was immediate and so profound she could not stop a small sound of gratitude. "Thank you," she whispered. "Come on," Wade said, gathering his horse's reins. "We will ride double to the ranch. It is closer than town, and the boss's wife will make sure you are properly looked after. Can you tell me what happened while we ride? He mounted first, then reached down to pull her up behind him. Zara had to hitch up her dress immodestly to sit astride, but modesty seemed less important than survival at the moment. She wrapped her arms around his waist, feeling the warmth of him even through his shirt, and tried not to think about how improper this all was. As the horse began moving at a steady walk, Zara told him about the robbery. 3 masked men had stopped the coach, firing shots into the air. They had taken a strongbox from the boot, money from the passengers, and any jewelry they could find. One man had grabbed her mother's locket from her neck, breaking the chain. She had fought him for it, which was how she had ended up outside the coach with her coat torn off. They got everything, she said quietly. I had $40 saved. My ticket was purchased already, but I needed that money to help my aunt. She is elderly and sick. I was supposed to care for her, and now I have nothing. Wade was quiet for a moment, guiding the horse carefully over the rough ground. We will figure something out, he said finally. Right now, let us just get you warm and fed. The ride to the Double Creek Ranch took nearly an hour. By the time they arrived, full darkness had fallen, but Zara could see lamplight glowing in the windows of a large ranch house. Several outbuildings were scattered around, and she could hear cattle lowing in the distance. Wade rode straight up to the main house and called out as he dismounted. Mrs. Patterson, got someone here who needs help. The door burst open and a woman in her 40s rushed out, wiping her hands on her apron. She took one look at Zara, still sitting on the horse wrapped in Wade's coat, and immediately took charge. Get her inside, Wade. Lord have mercy, she looks frozen solid. Was this from that robbery? Yes, madam. Stage left her behind. Mrs. Patterson muttered something unflattering about the stagecoach driver as Wade helped Zara down. Her legs nearly buckled when her feet hit the ground, stiff from cold and riding. Wade caught her elbow to steady her, and Mrs. Patterson swept her toward the house. I have stew on the stove and the fire is good and hot. Wade, you tell Mr. Patterson what happened, then get yourself some supper too. You must be frozen in just that shirt. Inside, the ranch house was wonderfully warm. Mrs. Patterson guided Zara to a chair near the fireplace and began fussing over her immediately, bringing blankets and hot coffee and a bowl of thick beef stew. Mr. Patterson, a broad-shouldered man with gray in his beard, listened as Wade explained the situation. Damned bandits, Mr. Patterson growled. Sheriff needs to form a proper posse. This is the 3rd robbery this month. Driver should not have left her, Wade said, his voice harder than Zara had heard it before. Could have been killed out there or frozen to death. We will deal with that tomorrow, Mrs. Patterson said firmly. Tonight, this poor girl needs rest. What did you say your name was, dear? Zara Martinez, madam. I cannot thank you enough for your kindness. Nonsense. Anyone would do the same. Now eat that stew before it gets cold. Wade, you too. Sit down and eat. Wade obeyed, settling into a chair across from Zara with his own bowl of stew. Without his coat, she could see he was lean but strong, with the kind of build that came from hard physical work. His hands were scarred and calloused, and he ate with the single-minded focus of someone who worked long days and needed the fuel. As the warmth and food revived her, Zara found herself studying him. He had not asked for anything in return for his help, had not questioned her story or made her feel like a burden. He had simply seen someone in need and helped, giving her his coat without a second thought, even though it meant he would be cold. I will pay you back, she said suddenly. For the coat, for the trouble. Once I get to my aunt and find work, I will pay you back. Wade looked up from his stew, seeming surprised. No need for that, miss. Coat is not going anywhere, and neither is the stew. But I have nothing. You all are being so kind, and I have no way to repay you, Mrs. Patterson patted her shoulder. Dear girl, kindness does not need repaying. It just needs passing on. Now, you said you were meant to care for your aunt in Cheyenne. Yes, madam. She is getting on in years and has trouble managing alone. I was meant to keep house for her and help with her needs. Does she know you are coming? I sent a letter 2 weeks ago, but I do not know if she received it. We are not close. She is my father's sister, and he passed 5 years ago. My mother died when I was young. I have been on my own since then, working where I could. Zara felt her throat tighten. The dress shop where I worked closed last month. The owner retired. This was my only option. You have people in Denver? Mr. Patterson asked. No, sir. No one close anyway. The rancher and his wife exchanged a look that Zara could not quite read. Then Mrs. Patterson smiled. Well, you have friends here now. Let us get you settled for tonight, and tomorrow we will figure out the rest. She set Zara up in a small guest room with a real bed and warm quilts. It was the first time in months Zara had slept anywhere so comfortable. The last thing she thought before exhaustion claimed her was of Wade Miller's steady voice saying, "Not as much as you do," as he handed over his coat. Morning came with the smell of coffee and frying bacon. Zara woke disoriented for a moment, then remembered where she was. Someone had left a dress draped over the chair in her room, simple blue calico that looked like it would fit reasonably well. There was also a note in a feminine hand. This was mine when I was younger. Please keep it. Join us for breakfast when you are ready. The dress fit better than her torn traveling dress, and Zara felt more human once she had washed her face and braided her long, dark hair. She made her way to the kitchen, following the sounds of conversation. The Patterson family was gathered around a large table. In addition to Mr. and Mrs. Patterson, there were 2 younger men who looked like ranch hands and a girl of about 16 who must have been the Pattersons' daughter. And Wade, sitting at the far end with a cup of coffee, looking more rested than he had the night before. "Good morning, dear," Mrs. Patterson said warmly. "Sit down and eat. We have been discussing your situation." Zara sat, accepting a plate piled with eggs, bacon, and biscuits. Her stomach growled embarrassingly, and the Patterson daughter giggled. "We sent word to your aunt this morning," Mr. Patterson said. "One of our hands had business in Cheyenne anyway, so he took a message explaining what happened and that you are safe here. Should hear back by this evening." "Thank you," Zara said, overwhelmed by their continued kindness. "I do not know how I will ever repay all of this." "Actually, we might have a solution that helps everyone," Mrs. Patterson said, glancing at her husband. "Our daughter Emma here is supposed to be getting tutored in reading and writing and numbers, but the teacher we hired moved away last month to get married. Wade mentioned you worked in a dress shop in Denver. Can you read and write and do sums?" "Yes, madam. Quite well, actually. My father was a school teacher before he died. He made sure I was educated. Would you consider staying here for a while? We could use a teacher for Emma, and honestly, I could use help with the household too. Winter is coming, and we will have extra hands staying in the bunkhouse who need feeding. I would pay you fair wages, room and board included. That way you could save up some money before heading to your aunt or send her some help if she needs it." Zara blinked, trying to process this unexpected offer. "You would hire me, just like that? Why not?" Mr. Patterson said. "You need work, we need help. Seems straightforward to me." Wade spoke up from his end of the table. "Mrs. Patterson is right that winter is the busy time here. We bring the herd down from the high pastures, do all the preparations for the cold months. Extra hands everywhere mean extra mouths to feed." "I am a good cook," Zara said slowly, her mind racing. "And I can clean and mend and teach. But are you certain? You do not really know me. I know you fought a robber over your mother's locket, Wade said quietly. I know you were more worried about your aunt than yourself when you were half frozen. I know you tried to give back help that was freely offered because you felt like a burden. That tells me plenty. Mrs. Patterson nodded. We are good judges of character, dear, and frankly, I could use another woman in this house. Do you know what it is like being outnumbered by men all the time? Emma laughed. Mother complains about this daily. Because it is true. So what do you say, Zara? Will you stay a while? What else could she say? It was an answer to a prayer she had not even thought to make. Yes, Zara said. Yes, I will stay. Thank you all so much. The arrangement settled, Zara threw herself into her new duties with determination. She spent mornings working with Emma, who was bright but had been allowed to slack in her studies. Afternoons and evenings were devoted to helping Mrs. Patterson with the enormous task of keeping the ranch house running. The Double Creek Ranch was bigger than Zara had realized that first night. Mr. Patterson ran about 300 head of cattle and had 8 full-time hands, plus extra help hired for the busy seasons. That meant cooking for at least a dozen people 3 times a day, plus all the cleaning, laundry, mending, and dozens of other tasks that kept a household functioning. Zara proved her worth quickly. She was organized and efficient, and her cooking was even better than Mrs. Patterson's, something the older woman admitted with good-natured grace. The ranch hands, initially shy around the new woman, soon warmed to her. She learned their names and preferences, patched their clothes, and listened to their stories. But it was Wade she found herself thinking about most often. He was different from the other hands. Quieter, more serious, but with a dry sense of humor that emerged at unexpected moments. He was unfailingly respectful but not distant, treating her like a person rather than either an object to be admired or a servant to be ignored. He worked harder than anyone else on the ranch, always the first up in the morning and the last to finish at night, and he was kind. She saw it in how he treated the younger hands, patiently teaching them skills he had mastered. In how he cared for the horses, always making sure they were brushed and fed before he saw to his own needs. In how he helped Mrs. Patterson carry heavy pots without being asked, or fix the hinge on Emma's door that had been sticking for months. Zara told herself that her interest was simply gratitude. He had saved her, after all, given her his coat, helped bring her here to safety. Of course, she thought about him. That was only natural, but gratitude did not explain the way her heart jumped when he walked into the kitchen for breakfast, or how she found herself looking out the window to watch him work with the horses, or how his rare smiles made something warm unfurl in her chest. 3 weeks after her arrival, the first real snow came. Zara woke to a world transformed, white and pristine and beautiful. It was also bitterly cold, and she was grateful for the warm house and the hot coffee Mrs. Patterson had already brewing. Storm blew in overnight, Mrs. Patterson said when Zara came down for breakfast. The men will be working to get the cattle settled. It is going to be a long day for them. It was. The hands came and went throughout the day, grabbing quick meals when they could. Zara and Mrs. Patterson kept coffee hot and food ready, knowing the men needed fuel to work in the cold. Wade came in near midday, his face red from the wind, snow dusting his hat and shoulders. "How is it out there?" Mrs. Patterson asked, pushing a bowl of stew toward him. "Cold," Wade said simply. "Lost a fence section on the north pasture. We are working to repair it before the cattle drift. You look frozen solid. Sit longer than 5 minutes, for heaven's sake." Wade gave her one of his slight smiles. "Yes, madam." Zara poured him coffee and set it at his elbow without saying anything. He glanced up at her and their eyes met for a moment. Something passed between them, some wordless acknowledgement, and Zara felt heat rise in her cheeks. She busied herself with slicing bread, aware of him even with her back turned. After he left, Mrs. Patterson gave her a knowing look, but said nothing. The snows continued through November and into December. Zara settled into the rhythm of ranch life, finding satisfaction in the work and genuine affection for the Patterson family. Emma was thriving with regular lessons, already reading at a much higher level than when they started. Mr. Patterson had proven to be a fair and generous employer, and Mrs. Patterson had become something like a friend, the two women working side by side through the long days. Word had come from Zara's aunt in Cheyenne. She was managing well enough and told Zara not to hurry on her account. The elderly woman had even sounded pleased that her niece had found good employment, encouraging her to stay through the winter at least. With that weight off her mind, Zara allowed herself to simply be present where she was, and where she was seemed to include increasingly frequent interactions with Wade Miller. It started small. He began lingering after meals, nursing his coffee and joining the conversation instead of hurrying back to work. When Zara mentioned missing the books she had owned in Denver, he appeared 2 days later with 3 well-worn novels, saying he thought she might like them. When the kitchen pump froze, he spent an hour fixing it despite having a dozen other urgent tasks. When she admitted she had never learned to ride well, he offered to teach her. That was how she found herself in the ranch's corral on a cold December afternoon, sitting on the gentlest horse in the stable while Wade walked beside her giving quiet instructions. "Just relax," he said. "Horses can feel when you are tense. She is not going to do anything scary. Just sit easy and let her walk." "Easy for you to say," Zara muttered, gripping the saddle horn. "You have probably been riding since you were 5 years old. 4, actually. My father put me on a horse before I could walk properly." He paused, then added, "He was a ranch hand, too. Worked himself to death trying to save money for our own land." It was the first personal thing Wade had shared, and Zara glanced down at him in surprise. "I am sorry. That must have been hard." "It was. But he taught me everything I know about horses and cattle and honest work. Cannot regret that." Wade's hand rested briefly on her boot, steadying her. "You are doing fine. See, she is walking nice and calm." They circled the corral several times, Wade keeping up a steady stream of instruction and encouragement. By the end of the lesson, Zara felt more confident, and Wade was actually grinning at her obvious pride. "You are a natural," he said, helping her dismount. His hand spanned her waist easily, lifting her down from the horse. For a moment they stood very close, his hand still on her waist, her palms resting on his shoulders. Neither moved. Then Wade stepped back, clearing his throat. "Same time tomorrow if you want. You will be galloping by Christmas." "I doubt that very much," Zara said, trying to match his light tone even though her heart was hammering. "But yes, tomorrow, I would like that." As she walked back to the house, Zara felt like she was floating. This was dangerous territory, she knew. She was an employee here, dependent on the Pattersons' goodwill. Wade was a cowboy who made barely enough money to keep himself fed and clothed. Neither of them had any business thinking romantic thoughts about the other, but she was thinking them anyway. And if she was reading the signs right, so was he. Mrs. Patterson certainly seemed to think so. That evening, as they were cleaning up after supper, the older woman said casually, "Wade seems to be finding a lot of reasons to be around the house lately." Zara felt her cheeks burn. "He is teaching me to ride. And bringing you books, and fixing things I did not even know were broken. Mrs. Patterson, I promise I have not done anything improper." "Oh, honey, I know that. And I know Wade would never do anything improper either." That boy is honorable to his bones." She paused in her dishwashing. "I am not scolding you. I am just saying I have eyes. And what I see is two good people who seem to make each other happy. That is not something to apologize for. Even if it is complicated, everything worth having is complicated. Lord knows my courtship with Mr. Patterson was complicated. My parents thought he was too poor and too rough. His parents thought I was too citified and soft. We got married anyway and proved them all wrong." She smiled. "Just be careful with your hearts, both of you. But do not be so careful you miss something real." Zara thought about that conversation late into the night. Something real. Was that what this was becoming? It felt real when Wade looked at her across the dinner table. Real when his hand brushed hers passing a dish. Real when he smiled at something she said, that rare, full smile that transformed his serious face. But what future could they possibly have? She knew cowboys made little money and lived rough lives. She had some education but no real prospects beyond what she was doing now. Neither of them had anything to offer the other except themselves. Maybe that would be enough. Maybe that could be everything. The riding lessons continued. Zara improved quickly, and Wade proved to be a patient, encouraging teacher. Their sessions became the highlight of her day, that hour where it was just the two of them and the horses, away from the bustle of the ranch house. One afternoon, about a week before Christmas, Wade suggested they ride out beyond the corral. "You are ready for the open range," he said. "And I want to show you something." They rode east, away from the main ranch buildings, into rolling hills covered in snow. Wade kept his horse close to hers, ready to help if needed, but Zara managed fine. The cold air stung her cheeks, but she felt gloriously free out here under the enormous Wyoming sky. After about 20 minutes, Wade led them to the top of a rise. Below, a small valley spread out, dotted with cattle bearing the Double Creek brand. Beyond that, more hills rolled toward distant mountains, purple in the afternoon light. "This is beautiful," Zara breathed. "This is why I do it," Wade said quietly. "The work is hard and the pay is poor and you are always at someone else's mercy, but you get to see this. You get to be part of this." He gestured at the vast landscape. "My father used to say that land does not belong to any man, no matter what papers he holds. We just get to borrow it for a while. Our job is to be good stewards while it is in our care." Zara turned to look at him. In the clear winter light, she could see every detail of his face, the lines around his eyes from squinting into the sun, the slight curve of his lips, the steadiness in his gaze. "You really love this life." "I do. Only life I have ever known, only life I want." He paused, then added, "Though lately I have been thinking about what else I might want." Her heart stopped, then started again faster. "What else?" Wade turned his horse so they were facing each other. "I think you know, Zara, I am not good with pretty words. I am just a cowboy who works for his living and probably always will be. But these past weeks, getting to know you, I have started thinking about things I never thought about before. Like what it would be like to come home to someone at the end of the day, someone who matters." "Wade," she whispered. "I know I should not say anything. You have your own plans, your own life to figure out, and I have no business asking you to consider someone like me. But Mrs. Patterson said I would be a fool to keep quiet, and I am a lot of things, but I try not to be a fool." Zara felt tears pricking her eyes, but they were not sad tears. "Mrs. Patterson is a wise woman." "Does that mean," Wade started to ask, hope flickering across his face. "It means I have been thinking about the same things," Zara said. "It means when you walk into a room, everything gets brighter. It means I keep finding excuses to be wherever you are. It means the best part of my day is these riding lessons because I get you all to myself for a little while." Wade dismounted in one smooth motion and walked to her horse. He reached up, and she let him lift her down. They stood in the snow on the hilltop with the wind blowing around them and the vast Wyoming landscape spread out below. "I have nothing to offer you," Wade said, his hand still on her waist. "Nothing but hard work and an uncertain future." "You offered me your coat when I had nothing," Zara said softly. "You said you did not need it as much as I did. That told me everything I need to know about who you are." "Zara Martinez, I am going to kiss you now if that is all right." "That is very much all right, Wade Miller." His kiss was gentle at first, almost tentative, as if he was afraid she might break. But when she wrapped her arms around his neck and kissed him back, he deepened it, pulling her closer. It was everything a first kiss should be, sweet and passionate and full of promise. When they finally pulled apart, both breathing hard, Wade rested his forehead against hers. "I will work harder than I ever have," he said fiercely. "I will save every penny. I will find a way to give you the life you deserve." "I do not need a fancy life," Zara said. "I just need an honest one. With you." They stood there for a long time, holding each other in the cold, neither wanting to break the spell. Finally, practical considerations intruded. The sun was setting, and they needed to get back before dark. The ride home was different from the ride out. They rode side by side, gloved hands occasionally touching, stealing glances at each other like teenagers. Zara felt like she was glowing from the inside out. Mrs. Patterson took one look at them when they returned and smiled knowingly. Mr. Patterson, observant in his own way, cleared his throat and said, "Wade, got a minute to talk?" Wade glanced at Zara, who nodded encouragingly, then followed the rancher into his office. Zara tried not to pace nervously while she helped prepare supper, but Mrs. Patterson laughed at her obvious anxiety. "Relax, dear. My husband is not going to run him off. He likes Wade, trusts him too, which is more important." When Wade emerged about 20 minutes later, he looked relieved. At supper, Mr. Patterson made an announcement. "Wade has informed me that he intends to court Zara properly," the rancher said. "I told him I have no objections as long as you do not, Zara, and as long as the work does not suffer." "The work will not suffer, sir," Wade said quickly. "I know it will not. You are the most reliable hand I have ever hired." Mr. Patterson looked between them. "I also told him that I have been thinking about expanding the operation. I need a foreman I can trust, someone who knows this ranch and these lands. I am offering Wade that position with a raise in pay and a small house on the property that goes with the job." Zara gasped. Wade looked stunned. "Sir, I do not know what to say," Wade managed. "Say you will take it. Say you will help me build this ranch into something even bigger. And say you will consider making your home here permanent, both of you." "Yes," Wade said immediately. "Yes, sir, I will, and thank you. I will not let you down." "I know you will not, son." That night, after the dishes were done and everyone else had gone to bed, Wade found Zara on the porch. She was wrapped in a shawl, looking at the stars, too excited to sleep. "Hey," he said softly. "Hey yourself, foreman." She turned to him with a brilliant smile. "I am so proud of you." "It is more than I ever expected," Wade admitted, leaning against the porch railing beside her. "I thought I would be just a hand for my whole life. This changes everything. You deserve it. Mr. Patterson sees what I see, someone loyal and hardworking and good." Wade reached for her hand, threading their fingers together. "The house he mentioned is not big, 2 rooms and a kitchen. But it has a good roof and a stone fireplace. It sounds perfect. Zara, I know we just admitted our feelings today. I know proper courting takes time, but I also know what I want." He turned to face her fully, holding both her hands in his. "I want a life with you. I want to fix up that little house and make it a home. I want to wake up next to you every morning and come home to you every night. I want to build something real together." "I want that too," Zara whispered. "I want all of that. Then we will do it right. I will court you properly through the winter. We will get married in the spring when the wildflowers are blooming, and then we will start our life together in that little house." He squeezed her hands. "How does that sound? Like everything I never knew I was looking for." They sealed the promise with a kiss under the Wyoming stars, and Zara thought about how strange and wonderful life could be. 6 weeks ago, she had been desperate and alone on a freezing road. Now she had a home, a family of sorts, and a future with a man who had given her his coat and, in the process, given her everything else. The winter passed in a blur of happiness. Wade courted Zara with old-fashioned propriety, mindful of his position in the household and her reputation. But everyone could see they were head over heels in love. Wade carved her a jewelry box to replace the one she had lost. Zara made him a new shirt, stitching careful seams by lamplight. They took walks in the snow, sat together at meals, and talked for hours about everything and nothing. Wade moved into the foreman's house in January, spending his spare time fixing it up. The other hands helped, pleased to see their friend getting his chance at happiness. They repaired the roof, replaced broken windows, and even built new furniture. Zara contributed curtains and rugs, transforming the rough cabin into something cozy. In February, Wade rode into Cheyenne and bought a ring. It was simple, a thin gold band with a small stone, but it was real gold and the stone was a genuine diamond, even if tiny. It cost him 3 months' savings, and he did not regret a penny. He proposed properly on Valentine's Day, getting down on one knee in the parlor with the whole Patterson family watching. Zara said yes through happy tears, and Mrs. Patterson immediately began planning the wedding. They were married on April 15, 1883, on a warm spring day with wildflowers blooming across the hills, just as Wade had promised. The ceremony was held at the small church in the nearest town, with the Patterson family and all the ranch hands in attendance. Zara wore a dress Mrs. Patterson had helped her make, simple white cotton with lace at the collar. Wade wore a new suit, his hair slicked back, looking nervous and proud and so handsome Zara could barely breathe. When the preacher said Wade could kiss his bride, he did so with such tenderness that several of the ranch hands had to wipe their eyes. After the ceremony, they had a party back at the ranch, with food and music and dancing that lasted until well after dark. Finally, as the stars came out, Wade and Zara walked to their house. Their house. Wade carried her over the threshold, both of them laughing, and closed the door on the rest of the world. "Hello, Mrs. Miller," Wade said, setting her down gently. "Hello, Mr. Miller," Zara replied, wrapping her arms around his neck. "I love the sound of that. So do I." He kissed her softly. "Welcome home." Their first years of marriage were not easy, but they were good. Wade worked long hours as foreman, managing the hands and helping Mr. Patterson expand the herd. Zara continued teaching Emma and helping Mrs. Patterson, though as a paid employee now rather than out of obligation. The money Wade made as foreman, combined with her wages, allowed them to save a little each month. They talked about the future constantly. Wade dreamed of having his own ranch someday, even if it was small. Zara dreamed of children, of filling their little house with laughter and love. They both dreamed of growing old together, of building a life that would last. In the fall of their first year of marriage, Zara realized she was pregnant. She told Wade one evening after supper, nervous about how he would react. They had not planned this quite so soon, though they had not prevented it either. Wade's face went through several emotions in rapid succession: shock, wonder, fear, and finally pure joy. He picked her up and spun her around, laughing, then immediately set her down and apologized for being too rough. "I am not made of glass," Zara said, laughing at him. I know, but there is a baby now, our baby. I have to be careful. He placed his hand on her still flat belly with such reverence that Zara felt tears spring to her eyes. You are going to be such a good father, she whispered. I am going to try. God, Zara, I am going to try so hard. Their son was born in May of 1884, during a thunderstorm that shook the little house. Mrs. Patterson served as midwife, having delivered dozens of babies in her time. Wade paced outside, not allowed in the room but unable to go more than a few feet from the door. When he finally heard the baby's cry, he burst through the door despite Mrs. Patterson's protests. Zara, exhausted and sweaty and more beautiful than he had ever seen her, held a tiny bundle wrapped in a quilt. We have a son, she said tiredly. A healthy baby boy. Wade approached carefully as if in a dream. When Zara pulled back the quilt to show him the baby's face, he felt his heart crack wide open. This tiny person, red-faced and squalling, was his and Zara's, their son. What should we name him? Zara asked. They had discussed names but never settled on one. Now, holding his son for the first time, Wade thought of his father. The man who had worked himself to death but had taught Wade everything important, who had loved horses and the land and his family in that order. William, Wade said. After my father. William Patterson Miller, if you like the sound of that. I love it, Zara said. Hello, William. Welcome to the world. Being parents transformed them both. Wade, already responsible, became even more focused on providing and protecting. He worked harder than ever, driven by the knowledge that he had a family depending on him. Zara discovered reserves of strength and patience she had not known she possessed. The sleepless nights, the endless demands of an infant, the constant worry, none of it dimmed her joy. They were tired all the time that first year. Their little house felt even smaller with a baby in it. Money was tight, and there were moments of stress and frustration. But there were also moments of piercing happiness. William's first smile, directed at Wade after a long day of work. The weight of the baby sleeping on Zara's chest. The three of them together in their small home, a family. Mr. Patterson proved to be a doting honorary grandfather. He carved toys for William and always had peppermints in his pocket for when the baby was older. Mrs. Patterson knitted endless blankets and clothes, thrilled to have a little one around again. Emma, now 18, was a devoted aunt. When William was 2 years old, Zara became pregnant again. This time she was less nervous, having done it once before. Wade was equally thrilled, though he worried about her having to care for a toddler while pregnant. Their daughter arrived in the spring of 1886, an easier birth than William's had been. They named her Lily, after the wildflowers that had been blooming when Wade proposed. She was a peaceful baby, content to watch the world with wide, curious eyes. With 2 children, the little house was truly bursting at the seams. Wade started drawing up plans for an addition, a second bedroom for the children. Mr. Patterson, seeing his foreman struggle, offered to help with materials and labor. Consider it a bonus, the rancher said gruffly. You have been worth every penny I pay you and then some. Let me do this for your family. The addition was completed by the end of summer. It was not large, but it gave the children their own space and made the house feel like less of a squeeze. Zara painted wildflowers on the walls of the new room and Wade built small beds. William was proud to be a big brother, already protective of his baby sister. Life settled into a new rhythm. The work was endless, raising children while both Wade and Zara continued their jobs on the ranch. But it was a good life, full of love and purpose. They had less time for each other than they once did, but they stole moments when they could. A kiss in passing. Holding hands while watching the children play. Conversations late at night after the little ones were finally asleep. When William was 5 and Lily was 3, Mr. Patterson called Wade into his office for a serious discussion. The rancher was getting older, and his health was not what it once was. He had been thinking about the future of the ranch. "Emma is getting married next month," Mr. Patterson said. "Her husband is a good man, but he is not a rancher. He has his own business in town." "They will not be staying here," Wade nodded, knowing all this already. Emma had been courting a banker from Cheyenne for over a year. "That means I do not have anyone to leave this ranch to when I am gone," Mr. Patterson continued. "Oh, it will go to Emma legally, but she will just sell it. Some stranger will own the Double Creek, and everything we have built will change." "That would be a shame, sir," Wade said carefully, not sure where this was going. "It would. So I have a proposal for you. I want to sell you a piece of the ranch. 500 acres on the eastern section, including the land your house sits on. I will sell it to you for a fair price, and you can pay me back over time. That way you will have your own land, your own start. And I will know that at least part of the Double Creek legacy continues with someone who loves it like I do." Wade felt like the floor had dropped out from under him. "Sir, I cannot possibly afford 500 acres. You can if I hold the note and you pay me back over 20 years. The monthly payment would be less than you are saving now, and you can continue to work as foreman for as long as you want, running the whole operation. When I am gone, Emma will sell the rest of the ranch, but your peace will be secure. Your children's inheritance." It was overwhelming. It was everything Wade had ever dreamed of but never thought possible. His own land. His own ranch, even if it was just a piece of a larger one. "I do not know what to say," Wade said honestly. "This is beyond generous, sir." "It is good business," Mr. Patterson corrected. "You have been the best foreman I have ever had. You have helped me build this ranch into something profitable, and you are like a son to me, Wade. I want to see you and your family secure, so what do you say?" "Yes," Wade said, his voice rough with emotion. "Yes, sir, and thank you. You will not regret this." "I know I will not." Wade ran home to tell Zara, bursting through the door in the middle of the afternoon and startling her while she was teaching William his letters. "We have land," he said, picking her up and spinning her around just like he had when she told him about her first pregnancy. 500 acres, Zara. Our own land." Through happy tears, she made him explain everything. When he finished, she threw her arms around him. "We are ranchers," she said wonderingly. "Real ranchers." "Small-time ranchers," Wade corrected, but he was grinning. "But yes, our own spread, the Miller Ranch." "The Miller Ranch," Zara repeated, testing the words. "I love it." That night, after the children were asleep, they made love in their little house on their own land, and Zara thought about the impossible journey that had brought them here. From a freezing road in Wyoming to this, a home and a family and a future beyond anything she could have imagined. The next years were busy ones. Wade worked harder than ever, managing Mr. Patterson's herd while also building up his own small operation. With the rancher's permission, he ran his own cattle on Double Creek land, a starter herd of 50 head. It was not much, but it was a beginning. Zara managed the household and the children while also helping Mrs. Patterson less and less as the older woman encouraged her to focus on her own family. She started a garden, putting up vegetables for the winter. She taught William to read and write, preparing him for the day he would start school in town. She watched Lily grow from a baby into a bright, curious little girl. They had their struggles. A hard winter in 1888 killed a dozen of Wade's cattle, a devastating financial blow. William broke his arm falling from a horse, giving them both gray hairs. There were arguments about money, about time, about the endless pressures of their life. But there was also joy. William's first day of school, nervous and excited in his new clothes. Lily's 4th birthday, celebrated with a cake, Zara had spent all day making. The evening Wade came home and told Zara that his herd had grown to 100 head through careful breeding and management. The quiet moments rocking on their porch, watching the sun set over their land. In 1890, Mr. Patterson passed away peacefully in his sleep. It was not unexpected. He had been declining for months, but it was still a blow. The funeral brought people from all over Wyoming, testament to the respect the rancher had earned. Wade spoke at the service, his voice breaking as he talked about the man who had given him his chance, who had believed in him when he was just another cowboy. As expected, Emma inherited the ranch. She and her husband kept their promise, offering Wade the right to continue as foreman while they arranged the sale. It took 6 months, but eventually they found a buyer, a cattle company from the east with big plans for expansion. Wade met with the new owners, making clear that his 500 acres were separate and not for sale. They were not pleased, preferring to buy the entire property, but the contracts were clear. The Miller Ranch was its own entity now, carved out of the larger Double Creek but independent. The new owners brought in their own foreman, someone from Texas who had different ideas about how to run things. Wade transitioned from working for someone else to working entirely for himself. It was terrifying and exhilarating in equal measure. For the first time, he was truly responsible for everything. Every decision was his to make, every success and failure his own. He lay awake many nights, worrying about whether he could do it, whether he was smart enough or strong enough or just plain lucky enough to make it work. Zara never doubted him. "You have been running the Double Creek for years," she reminded him. "The only difference now is the name on the deed." "The difference is if I fail, we lose everything," Wade said. "Then we will not fail. We will work hard and be smart and help each other. We will make it work because we have to and because we can." Her faith in him was absolute, and it gave him strength when his own faith wavered. They hired 2 hands to help with the work, young men eager to learn. Wade taught them the way he had been taught, with patience and high standards. The Miller Ranch slowly grew. Another 50 head of cattle, better grazing rotation. A new barn built with lumber Wade hauled from town, fences mended and water sources developed. It was not easy, but it was theirs. William turned 10 in 1894, old enough to help with real ranch work. Wade taught him to rope and ride and mend fences, the same skills his father had taught him. The boy took to it naturally, and Wade felt a deep satisfaction seeing his son learn the life. Lily, 8 now, was more interested in the horses than the cattle. She had a gift with them, able to calm even the most skittish animals. Wade started teaching her too, delighting in her enthusiasm. Zara watched her family with deep contentment. This was what she had wanted, what she had dreamed of during those early days. Not wealth or luxury, but this. A home filled with love, children who were healthy and happy, a husband who worked hard and came home to them every night. In 1896, Zara became pregnant again, a surprise after a 10-year gap. She was 36 now, older than she had been with the other 2, and she worried about the risks. But the pregnancy progressed normally, and in the spring of 1897, their second daughter was born. They named her Rose, continuing the flower theme they had started with Lily. William and Lily were fascinated by their baby sister. At 12 and 10, they were old enough to be real helpers. William, in particular, was surprisingly gentle with the infant, his gangly adolescent awkwardness disappearing when he held her. The Miller Ranch continued to grow slowly but steadily. By 1900, they had 200 head of cattle and employed 4 full-time hands. They had expanded the house again, adding a proper parlor and a 3rd bedroom. It was not a fancy house by any means, but it was comfortable and solid, built to last. Wade had achieved his father's dream, owning his own land and running his own operation. It had taken years of grinding work and sacrifice, but it was real. When he rode his property lines, knowing every acre belonged to him, belonged to his family, the satisfaction was profound. But what made him happiest was coming home at the end of each day, seeing the lights in the windows of their house, hearing the children's voices, finding Zara in the kitchen, her face lighting up when he walked in. That was the dream that mattered most. One evening in early autumn of 1902, Wade and Zara sat on their porch after the children were in bed. Rose, 5 now, had finally settled down after demanding 3 stories. William, 18, was probably still up reading by lamplight. Lily, 16, was in her room writing letters to friends from school. "Remember the night we met?" Wade said suddenly. Zara turned to him with a smile. "Of course. You offered me your coat. You asked if I did not need it. And you said not as much as I did." She reached for his hand. "I think about that sometimes. How different my life would be if you had not come along that road, if you had not stopped to help." "I cannot imagine not stopping," Wade said. "Cannot imagine a life without you in it. We have built something good, have we not? A good life, a good family." "The best," Wade agreed. He pulled her close and she rested her head on his shoulder. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the stars come out. Inside the house, they could hear William helping Rose get a drink of water, hear Lily humming while she got ready for bed. Normal sounds of family life, ordinary and precious. "I love you," Zara said softly. "I have loved you since that first day, I think. Since you gave me your coat and looked at me like I mattered. You did matter, you do matter, you are everything." Wade kissed the top of her head. "I love you too, always have, always will." They stayed on the porch until the cold drove them inside, then went to bed in their comfortable room in their comfortable house on their own land. Zara fell asleep in Wade's arms, warm and safe and home. The years continued to pass, each one building on the last. William took over more and more of the ranch work, showing real aptitude for the business. When he turned 20, Wade made him a partner, giving him a stake in the operation. The young man met a girl from town, a teacher named Sarah, and courted her properly before proposing. They married in 1904, and Wade built them a small house on the property, keeping his family close. Lily surprised everyone by announcing she wanted to train horses professionally. Wade, who had always supported his children's dreams, helped her set up a proper training operation. She developed a reputation for her skill, and people came from all over Wyoming to have her work with their animals. Rose grew up surrounded by love and horses and wide open spaces. She was bright and curious, already reading at levels beyond her age. Zara taught her at home, as she once had taught Emma Patterson, passing on her father's legacy of education. In 1908, William and Sarah had a baby, making Wade and Zara grandparents for the first time. The baby was a girl, and they named her Zara after her grandmother. Zara wept when she heard, overwhelmed by the honor and the continuation of the family line. Wade was 52 that year, his hair going gray and his body showing the wear of decades of hard work. But he was healthy and strong, and he had no intention of slowing down. There was too much still to do, too much life still to live. Zara, at 48, was still beautiful in his eyes. Her dark hair had threads of silver now, and there were lines around her eyes from years of smiling. But she was still the woman he had fallen in love with on that hillside 25 years ago. They celebrated their 25th wedding anniversary in April 1908 with a party that brought together everyone they loved. The Patterson family came, including Emma and her grown children. The ranch hands, Both current and several who had worked for them over the years showed up. Friends from town and church filled their home and yard. At one point during the party, Wade found Zara in the kitchen, taking a moment of quiet amid the chaos. He came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist and resting his chin on her shoulder. "Having fun?" he asked. "The best fun." "Look at all these people, Wade. All these lives we have touched. You have touched them. You have made this house a home, made our family something special. I just work cattle." Zara turned in his arms to face him. "You do so much more than that. You built this ranch from nothing. You raised 3 amazing children. You have given me a life beyond my wildest dreams." "We did it together," Wade corrected. "Everything good in my life has been because of you." They kissed, a sweet lingering kiss that reminded them both of that first kiss on the hilltop 25 years ago. When they pulled apart, they realized several people had gathered in the doorway, watching with sentimental smiles. "Get back to your party," Lily called out, laughing. "You can smooch later." Everyone laughed, and Wade and Zara rejoined the celebration, hands linked. The years of 1910 brought more changes. William and Sarah had a second child, a boy they named Wade. Lily got married to a horse trainer from Montana, and they settled on Miller Ranch land, building their own house and continuing to expand the horse training operation. Rose, 13 now, showed signs of inheriting her father's business sense, already helping keep the ranch books. Wade officially retired from the day-to-day running of the cattle operation in 1912, turning over full control to William. He still rode the property daily, still helped when needed, but the primary responsibility was his son's now. It felt strange at first, letting go after so many years, but it also felt right. He had built something that would outlast him, something that would continue through his children and grandchildren. He spent more time with Zara, enjoying a slower pace of life. They took trips into Cheyenne, staying at the nice hotel and seeing the sights. They visited Zara's aunt, who was still alive at 92, a tiny, fierce woman who claimed pure stubbornness was keeping her going. They watched their grandchildren grow, 3 of them now with another on the way. In the evenings, they sat on their porch as they had done for decades, watching the sun set over their land. It never got old, that view. The rolling hills, the grazing cattle, the solid buildings they had worked so hard to build, all of it representing a life well lived. One night in October 1914, as they sat bundled in blankets against the autumn chill, Zara said, "Do you ever think about that day? The robbery, the cold, all of it?" "Sometimes," Wade admitted. "Mostly I think about how lucky I was, that I happened to be riding that road at that moment. That you were there and needed help. I think about your coat," Zara said with a smile, "how warm it was, how safe I felt the moment you wrapped it around me." "I still have it," Wade said. "That old canvas coat keeps it in the chest in our room." "I know. I see it sometimes when I am putting away winter clothes. It is falling apart now, full of patches and barely holding together. That coat was already old when I gave it to you, surprised it lasted this long." "Some things are built to last," Zara said softly, squeezing his hand. "Like us." Wade brought her hand to his lips and kissed it gently. "Like us," he agreed. They watched the stars come out, comfortable in the silence they had shared for more than 30 years. Inside the house, they could hear Rose practicing piano, the music floating out into the night. From the direction of William's house, a baby cried briefly, then quieted. The sounds of life continuing generation after generation. "We did good," Zara said finally. "We did," Wade agreed. "We did real good." As the years progressed into the late 1910s, the Miller Ranch thrived. William proved to be an excellent rancher, combining Wade's practical knowledge with new techniques and ideas. The cattle operation expanded further, and they began breeding horses seriously alongside Lily's training business. The ranch employed a dozen hands now, a far cry from the two-person operation Wade had started with. The world was changing rapidly. The Great War in Europe seemed impossibly distant but affected them nonetheless. Prices for beef fluctuated wildly. New technologies appeared. Automobiles became more common, though horses were still the primary transportation on the ranch. Telephone lines reached their area, and they had one of the new phones installed, though Wade never quite trusted it. Through it all, Wade and Zara remained the steady center of their family. They were the grandparents now, the elder generation. Wade was 62 in 1918, his body finally showing real signs of age. His knees ached in the mornings, and he moved more slowly than he once had. But his mind was sharp, and his love for his family and his land burned as bright as ever. Zara, at 58, spent her days managing the household and doting on grandchildren. There were 5 now, ranging from baby James to 14-year-old Zara. She taught the older ones their letters and numbers, passing on her father's legacy one more generation. She quilted and gardened and kept the family connected through letters and gatherings. Rose married in 1919, a lawyer from Cheyenne who was smart enough to appreciate her sharp mind. They settled in town, but Rose came home often, unable to stay away from the ranch that had shaped her. The 1920s brought prosperity. The ranch did well, cattle prices stabilized, and the family grew. More grandchildren arrived, and then the first great-grandchild in 1925, making Wade and Zara's family tree expand in all directions. Their little house, the one that had seemed so small when it was just the two of them, was now the heart of something much larger. Wade's health began to decline in 1926. Nothing dramatic, just the slow wearing down of a body that had worked hard for 7 decades. He spent more time in his chair on the porch, less time riding the range. Zara worried about him, but he insisted he was fine, just tired. "I have earned the right to be tired," he told her. 70 years is a long time to keep going. "Do not talk like that," Zara said, fear making her voice sharp. "You have plenty of years left." Wade smiled at her gently. "I hope so. I am not ready to leave you yet." "But if I did, you should know something." "Wade, stop." "Zara, listen. If I did go first, you should know that my life has been everything I ever wanted. You gave me that. You and the children and this ranch. I have been happier than any man has a right to be." Tears filled her eyes. "You are not going anywhere. We have more years together. We have to meet all our great-grandchildren and see what the future brings." "I hope you are right, darling. I surely do." He lasted 3 more years. Good years, filled with family and love and the quiet satisfaction of a life well lived. He watched his grandchildren grow, held his great-grandchildren, and saw the ranch continue to thrive under William's management. Wade died peacefully in March of 1929, sitting in his chair on the porch he had built so many decades ago. Zara was beside him, holding his hand. His last words were, "It was a good life, Zara. Thank you for sharing it with me." And then he was gone. The funeral brought people from all over Wyoming and beyond. Wade had touched many lives in his 73 years, and they came to pay their respects. He was buried on a hill overlooking the ranch with a simple stone that read, "Wade Miller, 1856–1929. Beloved husband, father, grandfather, he built something that lasted." Zara was lost without him. For 46 years he had been her partner in everything. The house felt empty, even filled with family. She went through the motions of living, but the spark had gone out. 3 months after Wade's death, she was going through his things, preparing to pass some of them on to William and Lily and Rose. At the bottom of the old chest, she found the coat. The canvas coat Wade had given her on a frozen road in 1882, 47 years earlier. It was barely recognizable now, patched and repatched, the canvas thin with age. But she could still see the shape of it, could still remember how warm it had felt that terrible, wonderful night. She held it to her face and breathed in, hoping for some trace of Wade's scent. And somehow, impossibly, she found it. Or maybe she just imagined it, but either way, for a moment, he was there with her again. "Not as much," she whispered, remembering his words. "You needed it not as much." But he had needed it. He had just needed her to be safe and warm more than he needed his own comfort. That had been Wade in a nutshell, always putting others first, always giving more than he kept for himself. Zara folded the coat carefully and put it back in the chest. It would stay there, a tangible reminder of where their love had begun. She lived 7 more years, surrounded by her children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren. She told them stories about Wade, about the ranch, about the early days when everything was uncertain and hard and wonderful. She made sure they understood what their grandfather had built, not just the physical ranch but the legacy of hard work and integrity and love. Zara died in her sleep in June of 1936, at the age of 76. She was buried next to Wade on the hill, her stone reading. Zara Miller, 1860–1936. Beloved wife, mother, grandmother, she made a house a home. The Miller Ranch continued through the generations. William ran it until his own death in 1955, then his son took over. Each generation added their own touches, their own improvements, but the core remained the same. The land Wade had bought from Mr. Patterson, the house he and Zara had built together, the legacy of 2 people who had met by chance and built something lasting. The old coat eventually found its way into a frame, displayed in the ranch house as a family heirloom. Generations of Miller children heard the story of how their great-great-grandfather had given it to their great-great-grandmother on a cold road in 1882. How that simple act of kindness had started everything. And sometimes, when the wind blew across the Wyoming hills, it seemed to carry echoes of the past. The sound of Wade's voice calling to the cattle, Zara's laugh from the kitchen. The ghosts of a love that had built a legacy, starting with nothing more than a coat offered in the cold and a cowboy who said he did not need it as much. The ranch still stood, over a century later, a testament to what 2 people could build when they loved each other and worked hard and refused to give up. The Miller family remained on that land, generation after generation, carrying forward the dreams of a cowboy and a woman he saved on a freezing November day. It was, in the end, exactly what Wade had promised Zara on that hilltop when he first kissed her. Something real, something that lasted. A life worth living, built together, one day at a time, from that first moment when he wrapped his coat around her shoulders, and everything changed.